We don't hear. Is there a reason why we don't hear?
Thank you.
There's no
So
sound.
Thank you. 100%. Okay. Thank you. Much appreciated. I was muted. Okay. So first of all, good morning, everybody. And Daf Tes has some relation to yesterday's Gemara, which quoted our Mishnah a few times. And now we're going to see the Mishnah itself and hopefully get more clarity. The first case, there are four categories in the Mishnah, and each category has a couple of examples. And I just highlighted the first one or second one of each category. Haveni Nazir Kisar Roshi, or other examples, Kafar Ha'aretz Kechol Hayom. He accepted upon himself in the zeros like the hairs of my head. Or he said like the dust of the earth, like the sand of the ocean. So the law over there is, I raised in the zero olam, yesterday, the Gemara only brought this part of the Mishnah. Really, we're going to see today that that's machlokes. This Rebbe is the second opinion. But the first opinion says that he is a Nazir many times. He's a Nazir forever. But the Mishnah says, that means that he finishes his Naziros every 30 days. He's many times a Nazir 30 days. And this L'chora doesn't have to do with the issue we had before about sometimes there's a Nazir Olam that's a very long Nazir and it doesn't stop. Just he's allowed to take a haircut once in a while. Hichbed Rosho, Hichbed Tzaro, Mekel Betar. There's a machlokes over there for every 12 months, every 30 days, every 7 days. He's really a constant Nazir. And he's a lot of light in his hair once in a while. But here it seems to say that Tachatchila, he was Makabal on himself many Nazirios, many times. Each Naziros is 30 days. So every 30 days, he's Megaleach. Not because his hair is heavy, because that's what he did. He accepted upon himself the amount of Nazirios as the hair on his head, which usually that's going to mean much longer than he's going to live. He's not going to live so long, but that's what he did. Every 30 days, he's another Nazir. Or the other examples of Ha'aretz Kol Hayom. Yesterday, we didn't have the rest of the Mishnah. Here brings another opinion. Rabbi Yomer, no, he's not many Naziros. That's going to be one long Nazir. He's a Nazir as long as the hair is on his head, which means it's also going to be his whole lifetime, but it's not going to be many Nazirios. It's going to be one long Naziros. What is the case that Rabbi would hold that he'll be many Naziros? Some say Naziros or Nazirios. We'll say Naziros. I think that's what the Mishnah is going to use the word. We might say Naziriot. I'm not sure how we would say it in Hebrew, but we'll say the words one long Nazir, just for English. We'll say one long Naziros or many Naziros. So Tanakama says when he says I'm a Nazir, the hairs of my head, he's many Naziros, each one 30 days. Rebbe says no, this would be one long Naziros. What's the case where Rebbe would agree that he's many Naziros? When are we going to say that each time he's many times a 30-day Naziros? That's the difference. Before he said, Nazir Kisaroshi. I'm a Nazir, the hairs of my head. That's one long Naziros. But if he says, Naziros, put a cholam over here. Let's try to put in the punctuation over here, Naziros. Maybe a little bit more emphasized. Naziros. Okay, hope it helps over there. That Kisaroshi. If he said, I'm taking upon myself plural Naziros, like the hairs of my head, the dust of the earth, the sand of the ocean over there, Rebbe agrees that there's going to be many Naziros. But in the case of Haveni Nazir, that's only one long Naziros. That's the first Mishnah. Next Mishnah. Haveni Nazir Malo Abayis, Amalo Kupa. He said, I'm a houseful, I'm a Nazir a houseful. I'm a Nazir a boxful. How much is that?
A box full?
A box full of Nazir. I'm a Nazir a box full. I'm a Nazir a house full. Both can also. We asked him what he meant. I just meant one big one. And as the Gemara said yesterday, he says like this is hard for me like a house full. Yesterday he said it's hard on me. What do we have yesterday? It's hard on me like not so for Olam. Even if he says that. He says that's like the end of the world. It's like a whole, that's also, he doesn't meant to say how difficult it is to stay away from wine, whatever, this amount of time, or not to become Tamil Mason. It's hard on me. So if he says that's what I meant, it does mean one big one meaning a heavy one. It's difficult, but then that just means that Nazirus, like we said yesterday, it doesn't mean to say he's making it longer or many. It just means that it's difficult, and it's one Nazirus. But if he said, remember Stam Nazat, he says, I just said the word Stam, you figure out what I meant. I said, Nazir Kimulo Bais. What does it mean? Not what I meant. I didn't have anything in mind. I said whatever the rabbis are going to say, that's what it means. So we say that it's a box full of mustard seeds or a house full of mustard seeds. That means that he's going to be a Nazir forever, because he's going to be many Naziros. Now, I didn't say, I take it back. Rewind a couple of seconds. When he says that it's a box full of mustard seeds, Nazir Kol Yamav, he's a Nazir all the days of his life. So Tosfos over here says that this is going to be dependent on the machlokes on the first Mishnah. It means the first Mishnah on top. I divided it into different Mishnahs, different cases. In the first Mishnah, we had a machlokes when he said, I'm a Nazir like the hairs on my head. Is he many Naziros, or every 30 days, or is he one long Naziros? So the Tosfos says that this case will be dependent on that machlokes, that when he's going to be a Nazir, the amount of mustard seeds in the box. So does that mean that he's many Naziros? And if there are 10,000 mustard seeds, so he's 10,000 Naziros, each one 30 days. Or it's one long Naziros, which is all that amount, 100,000, whatever, and it's going to be also his whole life. But that's machlokes. Means this case of being a Nazir Kol Yamav is going to be dependent on the first machlokes, if it means many Naziros or one long Naziros. The Mishnah does distinguishes if he said that I meant only one, a house full, a box full, I meant one big one, one hard one. So okay, he meant only one. But if he says stams, what does that mean? So then it's going to be plural. What does plural mean? That was machlokes before. If plural means many, or it means a long one. Okay. Next case, next Mishnah. We had this yesterday also, the more we're down this Mishnah. I'm a Nazir from here until Sfas, whatever it might be. So, we assess how many days of journey it is to get there. If it takes less than 30 days to get there, so then of course he has to be a minimum of 30 days, because there is no such thing as a Nazir less than 30 days. And even if he would have said specifically, I'm a Nazir for one day, he has to be a Nazir for 30 days. But if the journey is longer than 30 days, then Nazir he's a Nazir as long as the amount of days, which yesterday the Gemara said it means one long one. It could be, again, it's going to be dependent on the machlokes. No, here it says Minyan Ayamim. The Gemara says that here maybe everybody holds that it means one long one. And yesterday the Gemara said because it wasn't individual things, or it's Davashiesh Lo Kitzvah, or whatever the Gemara explained yesterday. Yesterday the Gemara said here it means one long one. From here until there, it's considered one long Nazirus, and if it was a 45-day journey, it's going to be a Nazir for 45 days. The next case, Irani Nazir Kimini Mosachama. I'm a Nazir like the number of the days of the solar year. So it's 365. Mona Naziros Kimini Naziros Kimini Mosachama. So he's going to be 365 Naziros, which is about 30 years. Every 365 times 30.
Hey.
Am I right?
Yes, I heard that. But
1 second. 365 divided by 12. Divided by 12. 1 second. What am I saying? 365 zeros. Every month is a Nazir. How many years are there in 365 months? About 30. It's good? I got it right?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
I heard that. I didn't make the calculation. That was so this 30. Yeah.
Yeah, 365 divided by 12.
By 12, yeah.
30.4, something like that.
360.
Okay, so he accepted upon himself many Naziros. Now, this again would be dependent on the machlokes. Rabbi and Rabbanan in the beginning of the mission, when he said the hairs of my head, there's a machlokes if that means many Naziros or one long Naziros. Rabbi said he only becomes many Naziros if he says Naziros, Arei Alai Naziros Kisaroshi. Here, he didn't say Arei Alai Naziros Ki Minyan Mosachama. He said, I'm sorry. He said, Arei Nazir Ki Minyan Mosachama. So even though the Mishnah says that he counts many Naziros, this is going to be dependent on the first machlokes. The Rebbe is going to argue and say that he's one long Nazir for 365 days. Okay,
yeah, that's what I was saying. There's 1 year.
The Mishnah says Mona Naziros Keminyan and Mosachama. The Mishnah says differently. The Mishnah says he counts Naziros the 365 times. That means that it's going to be.
But the point is, he says Harei Nazir.
You hold like you're a Rebbe man. You hold like Rebbe. Rebbe says in the beginning of the Mishnah, it depends if he said Hareini Nazir or Hareini Alai Naziros. So you're talking Rebbe language. Tanakama doesn't know like that. Again, Tanakama said, if he said I'm a Nazir, the hairs of my head, he's a Nazir every 30 days for the rest of his life. Because his hairs on his head are more than that. But he's a Nazir he's many Naziros. But Rebbe says no. If he doesn't have any Nazir, because he's only one Nazir forever. Okay, the days of the hairs on his head are going to be longer. It's going to be a Nazir all of his days, but if he wants to count how many hairs he has in his head, he can do that also. But that's going to be how long he's going to be a Nazir. But only one Nazir. Only if he says around Naziros, then you make many Naziros. So you're going like Rebbe, but there's a Tanakama that argues. And this Mishnah here is not like Rebbe, just like Tanakama, that if he says I'm a Nazir, Hareini Nazir, not Naziros, Hareini Nazir, like the solar year days. So he counts Naziros 365 times. Rebbe doesn't argue over here, but we know from the ratio that he's going to argue. So such a story that somebody did this. And when he finished, he died. It means he was a Nazir for 30 years.
Or
30 and a half years.
365 days.
What?
Or 365 days.
Okay, maybe the Gemara is going to say that it doesn't fit, but we might let's say simple that he holds like let's imagine that he holds like what we just finished saying. And when he finished, he says somebody said that I'm a Nazir and he was a Nazir 365 times, and he finished it, and then he died. I don't know what you want to learn from that, but it means that he actually did. It actually happened. That's what the Chachamim said. He's supposed to be a Nazir 365 times. Every time, and whatever it was Chodesh, whatever he came out with the end of his Naziros, he would bring the Karbanos, do the Kiluach, and start again. It was always a Nazir.
Were the Chachamim trying to make a point that their site was that's a proof?
Abud is being a proof to that it happened. That's what the earlier.
We don't know what it means, whether it's right or not right. That he died that day.
No, we're not saying that fact that he died shows anything. No, it does interest. I think it's a point of interest. I don't see anything. It's not saying anything about he died or he lived because of that. Maybe that gave him life for extra 30 years. I don't know what the Mishnah means to say with that. It's saying. It is interesting.
No, why the Mishnah usually says Allah? Why does Stam say something interesting?
I don't know. It would say Ma'aser Shaya and someone and Chacham and Paskin should be another 365 times. That would have been a good support. And it tells you that besides saying that, it also says when he finished, he died. So you're taking it two ways. Why could you take it? That it was a good thing. It gave him lengthy days. He got 30 years extra life because he was a Nazir. I don't know.
I don't know if this adds any time to the idea, but my father-in-law, the Shalom, bought a house in Malayadum tons of years ago. And the month he finished paying the what do you call it? The mashkanta, he died.
Wow.
He finished it.
I don't know about the this. I don't know
that's for me, but
Okay, I don't know.
I hope I live longer than my Scott.
Amen.
No, that is a very long mashkanta.
Okay, so the Gemara is going to go back to the second case. So we have three cases. One is I'm a Nazir, the hairs of my head. I'm a Nazir, houseful. I'm a Nazir until a certain place. I'm a Nazir the days of the solar year. So the Gemara is going to concentrate solely, more or less. Other things will come in also, but the main issue is going to be the second case where it says that you see the box as if it's full of mustard seeds, which is like the tiny thing that's the smallest thing you put into boxes, and that makes it to be a long Nazir, either many Nazirios or a long Nazir. And the Gemara says, is that necessarily true? Maybe you put in bigger things into the box. He didn't say a box full of mustard seeds. He said a box full. So he left it part. He didn't say
Why choose the smallest?
Yeah, why be so machmir and pick cheese?
Take bricks.
Bricks, okay. The Gemara is going to say something similar. The Gemara say cucumbers.
Oh.
I guess that's what he used to put into the boxes. First, I thought about a basketball, but I guess they don't put a basketball into the box. So you put mustard seeds, or you put you go to the vegetable fruit store. You ask, what do you use boxes for? He uses it for mustard seeds and uses it for cucumbers. So that's the most conscious. The Mishnah says, the Mishnah says that if he said I'm a Nazir a box full, you see as if it's full of mustard seeds, and it's going to end up that he's a Nazir his whole life. Let us look at it as if the box is full of squash and cucumbers and a pumpkin. Kishuin is squash and Lewin is pumpkin. And that's probably the big things. but to have pumpkin is surely big, so and he should be able to get out of it. Means if you say Nazir, if you say it's a mustard seeds, then he's a Nazir his whole lifetime. But maybe it's a box full of big things. Who told you to
Why interpret
l'chumra? How can you go l'chumra? Go l'kula. I'm a chizkiah. So we're gonna have two twists. It's gonna be chizkiah and Rav Yochanan. I'm a chizkiah, but machlokes shnuya Rav Shimon. And this issue would be a machlokes if you machmir by nedarim or you make it by nedarim. Our Mishnah says your machmir goes according to Rav Shimon, and Rav Yehuda Taka would argue. What do we know about this machlokes? Rav Shimon that he goes suffix nazirus is going to be l'chumra, even in the case where if he would have said specifically what he means, he would, but it might have been less. But since he might have accepted more than that, so we machmir on him that he becomes a nazir misafik. What's the case? We had this once upon a time. I guess they were having an argument if the Kri is 100 core or not. One said yes, one said not. Somebody said, I bet that it doesn't have 100 core, and if it does, I'm going to become a Nazir. Or the opposite, he bet that. Whatever the case was, he made a Nazir. He made himself a Nazir on the condition that a certain pile has 100 core. So if it has 100 core, he's going to be a Nazir. If it doesn't, he's not going to be a Nazir. And then they went to check it out. They were going to start measuring it. But it wasn't there anymore. They weren't able to figure out. So now he doesn't know is he a Nazir or not. If it had 100 core, he's a Nazir. If it didn't have, there's no way to check it out anymore. So what do you do? Misafik. Does it become a Nazir misafik? Rav Shimon also. Shesafik Nazirus lachmir. Rav Yehuda matir. Shesafik Nazirus lachmir. Rav Shimon says it's also because since we don't know if he's a Nazir, so you have to be machmir. And he meant in his mind that even if it's going to be, when he said I'm a Nazir on a condition, he means to say, and if I'm not going to be able to verify the condition, I'll be a Nazir also because not something Nazirus lachmir. Rav Yehuda says no, he didn't mean to accept upon himself a Nazirus if it wouldn't have been definite. On a suffix, he didn't mean it. He only meant if it's going to be a bad. If it's going to be a suffix, he didn't mean it. So Yehuda holds that a suffix lahakil, Rav Shimon holds a suffix lahachmir. So over here, they said a box full, and we don't know what does that mean. A box full might mean a box full of mustard seeds, might mean a box full of pumpkins. We don't know. So Rav Shimon is the one who's machmir, and that's why our Mishnah says you go with the mustard seeds. And Rav Yehuda would argue. Rav Yehuda would say that he's Nazir only the size of big things that would fit into the box.
Is this a Brisa or is it a Mishnah?
This is the Tanya, it's a Brisa. That's Rabbi Chizkiah's teretz. The rest of the Gemara is going to go with now to Rabbi Yochanan. There's going to be Kashas and Teretz, it's all going to be on Rabbi Chizkiah's finished with it. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Afilu Teim Rabbi Yehuda. You could say our Mishnah even goes according to Rabbi Yehuda that really, he usually says stuff from the Nazirus Lahakel. And over here still he's going to go with the mustard seeds. Why? Hasam Lanachas Lev in Nazirus. But Hacha Nachas Lev in Nazirus. The Mailis Lukimine. Over there, the question was, does it become a Nazir? I'm a Nazir on the condition that the house has, that the Kri has 100 core. So he doesn't know if he became a Nazir. If you don't know if he became a Nazir, he's not going to enter himself misafik into Nazirus. But here, he's showing a Nazir. The question is, how many Nazirus? Is he going to be a Nazirus of the size of pumpkins? As many, either as long or as many, or is he going to be the Nazir, a long Nazir, like the number of mustard seeds? So he got in. The question is if he can get out. So he can't get out misafik. If the question is if he's going in to the Nazir, is he going to become a Nazir? So then Rabbi Yehuda says Lakula, that he doesn't become a Nazir misafik. But if he's surely a Nazir, the question is if he can stop the Nazirus, so then you're not allowed to be makel over there. But man, let's look at him. How could you get him out? How could you remove him? That was a Yochanan's teretz. And the rest of the Gemara is going to go if we could follow up with this pshat. The Gemara doesn't understand. Am I low? Why can't you get out of the Nazirus Misafik? The same way that we asked a second ago. That what is the question over here? The Gemara is asking. The Gemara is assuming that when you say that he's a mustard full of Nazir of Nazir, that means that he's a mustard full of Nazirios. That is many Nazirios. As many mustard seeds there are, if there are 100,000 mustard seeds, so he's 100,000 times a Nazir. Not a Nazir for 100,000 days. He's Nazir that many times.
30 times.
And the kasha was maybe a Nazir the amount of cucumbers that fit in, which would be 30. 50. Let's say 50. Let's get it. 30 would confuse us with other 30s over here in the city. But 50 cucumbers, so it'll be a Nazir 50 times. So the Gemara is asking, your answer doesn't make sense. Rabbi Yochanan said there's a difference between going in or getting out. To get in, you don't get in misafik. Well, once you're in, you can't get out misafik. So he says doesn't make sense. Why not? Each Nazirus is a separate entity. he became a Nazirus, let's say there are 50 cucumbers. After the 50th cucumber, after the 50th Nazirus, he was a Nazir 50 times.
Right.
And now he finished. Now it's the question 51. Should he continue? Does he have to be a Nazir again? So if he meant cucumbers, no. If he meant mustard seeds, yes. So it's a suffix going in again. It's also going in. It's not starting. He's not getting out of it. He surely got out of the 50th one. He bought the Kabbalah on the 50th time and he finished. And now the question is, should he do more? So it's the same thing as getting in. He doesn't know if he should go in. Why do you say that when the first case, the case of Rabbi Yehuda Shimon was when he made it Nazirus on a Tanai. If there's 100 core, yes, now so he didn't know if he should go in. Rabbi Yehuda says you don't go in with suffering. And the Gemara said here's worse because he was already a Nazir. What's worse about it? It's that Nazir, those Nazirios are definitely over already. It's the only question if you ask them one Nazirios, so it's the same thing. The Gemara answers, I'm not trying to read this Gemara, the words. The idea is going to be good, but the words I don't get exactly. But here, Nazirus, I would put over here, the way I'm saying here that it means Nazirus, not Naziros. Nazirus, who? The Kibbul Alei. He only accepted upon himself one Nazirus. The Gemara is getting now into the Machlokes, the beginning of the Mishnah, that we said this is Machlokes, when he said, I'm a Nazir, the hairs of my head, is that many Nazirios, or is it one Nazirus? So we said a Machlokes, Tanakama and Rebbe, Chaim David held like Rebbe, that if he said of any Nazir, only one long Nazir. He's a Nazir, one long Nazir, the amount of the hairs on his head. Tanakama said, no, even if he said of any Nazir, it means it's many Nazirios. So the Gemara is saying that Rabbi Yehuda will hold, what's Chizkiah mean to say? Chizkiah means to say that Rabbi Yehuda will hold like Rebbe, that it's one long Nazirus. So when he said the mustard seeds, we said in the case of the mustard seeds, I spoke out the Taisus. Taisus says this. In the case of the mustard, is a Nazir Kol Yama. What does that mean? What does it mean, Nazir Kol Yama? You see as if it's full of mustard seeds and it's not Nazir all of his days. What does that mean? Does it mean he's many Naziros or is one long Naziros as much as the mustard seeds? So Taisus says, which we said the mission like that it depends on the first Machlokes. This issue will depend on the first Machlokes. Is he, according to Tanakam, will be many Naziros of 30 days, and according to Rebbe, he'll be one long Nazir, the amount of mustard seeds. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan meant to say, that Rabbi Yehuda, even though he goes off from Nazirus law, but in this case, that it became a Nazir definitely. And the question is, how long it's going to be. We're going according to Rebbe. Rebbe says that he doesn't become many Naziros. It's a long Naziros or a short Naziros. Is the Naziros going to be as many days as there are cucumbers? It'll be a 50-day Naziros, or is it going to be 100,000 day Naziros because he meant. So there, if he also like Rebbe, then Rabbi Yochanan makes sense. That he definitely is in, and the question is if it's over. If you hold many Nazirios, so then he finished the 50 Naziros, and the question is now if there's going to be a 51st, a 52nd, a 53rd. So it's also considered going in. It's not getting out. He's out of the 50th one. The question is, does he have to start another one? So then it wouldn't be a difference between the cases of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda would say he also Lakula. But if Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rebbe, that it's a question of when the Naziris is over. Is it going to be a 50-day Naziris or is it going to be 100,000 day Naziris? So then he got in and you don't know if you can get out. So there it will make sense that Rabbi Yochanan says that Rabbi Yehuda will agree, Machmer over here. The Amud Beis, the Rabbi Yehuda Savalak Rebbe, the Tanan, Rabbi Yomer, Ein Zamagalei Achachas Asosim Yom. This is the beginning of the Mishnah, the top of the line on Amud Aleph. Ve'ezeh Shem Galei Achachas Asosim Yom. Amar Ve'alei Nazir Ros, Kisar Roshi, Chafar Ros. That's the beginning of the Mishnah. The first case, Machlokes Rebbe and Rabbanan. If someone said Hareini Nazir, does he mean to have many Naziros or one Naziros? Rebbe holds it's only one Naziros, only if he specified a rare line Naziros. So since if Rebbe Yehuda holds like Rebbe, we could reconcile him with the Mishnah that says that you go l'chumra, that it's considered a box full of mustard seeds, because since you got in, and the question is how long it is, may you finish, not if you have to take on more Naziros. It's the only question of how long the Nazirus is going to be. It's going to be 50 days like the amount of cucumbers, or is it going to be 100,000 like the amount of mustard seeds? So every will say, since you got in, you can't get out from suffering. So Rabbi Yochanan reconciled the halacha, the Mishnah that says with the mustard seeds, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, if he holds like Rebbe. The rest of the Gemara is going to consider this possibility. Is it true that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rebbe? Is that the first machlokes in our Mishnah, the machlokes by the hairs of my head, Hareini Nazir, Kisar Roshi, is it many Naziros or is it one long Naziros? We're going to try to figure out if Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rebbe or not. But Tanan, the Rebbe, Rabbi Yehuda like Rebbe, is that true? You want to say Rebbe holds like Rebbe? I'll show you not so. But Tanan, Hareini Nazir, Kumenyan Mosachama. So it says that he's a Nazir 365 times. On Rabbi Yehuda, my side, the end of the Mishnah, the last case, Rabbi Yehuda said that such thing happened, and he did all of them, and he finished. Now, I said the pshat was that he did 365 Naziros.
Right.
It came 30 years, came out to be 30 years. But the Gemara is not convinced, like I've listened, said, maybe not. Maybe it means that he was a Nazir for 365 days. So the Gemara says it doesn't say that. This abbreviation stands for Iyam et Bishlama. Iyam et Bishlama. If you say all is well, the zeros come that he was Makabal on himself, many Naziros. When he said Kimin Mosachama, he meant 365 Naziros. He's going to be a Nazir for 365 times, comes out 30 years. So then it makes sense what Rabbi Yehuda said. He was supporting the Tanakama and the time of the Chivin Tishlomes. So it makes sense that he said there was somebody happened to him and he finished them and he died. But if you say that Rabbi Yehuda argues and holds like Rebbe that it's only one Naziros of 365 days, he only accepted on himself one Naziros. Is it Ashlama? There's a word Chivin Shehishlim Meis doesn't make sense. So here it's not so plain the Gemara. What's the problem? Why can't you say that? Rebbe said that he made the Naziros for 365 days and he died. So the Mefarshim have different pshatim here why it doesn't make sense. Some say because you wouldn't say the word Ashlama if it's one long one. You don't say the word he finished one Nazir. So Ashlama is only when you finish many. It wouldn't say, he would have said, I don't know why it wouldn't have, I don't know why the words wouldn't have made sense. Others say the pshat is that whenever you say a Maisa, it's always a Maisa l'sayeya. Whenever Tana says Maisa Haya, so he's coming to support the previous opinion. He's not coming to argue. Or else he should have said he would have argued, and then it says a Maisa. It means if the story would have been, did he do 365 days or did he do it 365 times? So the Gemara says that the words are not mashma that he's arguing on the Tanakama. He's agreeing to the Tanakama that says that you do 365 times on the zeros. But 30 years over there it's going to end up being. So you can't say that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rebbe. What are we dealing with again? That we talked about what he said when he said a box full, and when Machmer said that it means a box full of mustard seeds and not cucumbers. How come? Because Rabbi Yochanan said because Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rebbe, that you don't say that it's many Naziros, it's one long Naziros, and since he got in, he can't get out Misafel. That's only if you hold like Rebbe. And the Gemara is attacking that Rebbe does not like Rebbe, because Rebbe holds that it's one long Naziros, and Rebbe holds that it's many Naziros, because this mission is mashma like that. The story of the Dominion of Osachama, it's mashma from that Rebbe was supporting the Tanakam, he wasn't arguing with him. Tanakam said openly that he has to have 365 Naziros times. So that's the Gemara's attack on Rabbi Yochanan's pshat. That the Mishnah's mashma that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Tanakam, but doesn't hold like Rebbe. Second kasha, like Rebbe, I also could show you openly that from a brisa that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold like Rebbe. It's not one long Naziros, it's many Naziros. But Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer already knows like minyan hilkit pikayis or minyan shibali shmita. Mona Naziros can minyan hilkit pikayis or chamayis shibali shmita. Hilkit pikayis they say means like the piles of the collected figs. When they come time to harvest the figs, they make piles of seeds, they make piles on the ground. Then when you have a fig orchard, so you see many piles of figs. So if someone said, I'm a Nazir, the amount of through the fields, and it's like an expression of saying, well, the pathways many. So here it says that he has to count the zeros, the amount of piles that there are, or the amount of shvilim that there are. So what does the Gemara want from this? That Rabbi Yehuda is talking. Here's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda's one is talking. And he says that he's many Naziros. He doesn't say that he's one Naziros. That's the whole question over here. When he says these terms, does he mean to say many or one long one, a very long one? So here Rabbi Yehuda is talking, and he says that what he said, Hareni Nazir, it means many. So you can't say that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi, and if he doesn't hold like Rabbi, so then Rabbi Yochanan's teres didn't make sense. His whole teres to reconcile the Mishnah with mustard seeds with Rabbi Yehuda was only to say that he's in and he can't get out. That's only if he holds like Rabbi, but it doesn't hold like Rabbi. So the more gets out of it, it's this kasha, minyan shani. Here he said, minyan hilkiti. Hareni Nazir minyan. I'm a Nazir, the number of hilkiti. That doesn't sound like He's saying how long the days are, how many days it's going to be. That's saying how many times he's going to be. The word minyan, if he would have said Hareni Nazir Hilkit Tikayetz, then he would have said it's on again. Okay, sorry for that interruption, delay. Back onto the Gemara. So the Gemara is trying to distinguish between saying minyan or not. That even if you hold that when you say a big amount, you mean one long Nazirus, and you don't mean many Nazirios. But if you said the word minyan, like over here, I already know a minyan look at the kites. Minyan was the number. So if he said I'm a Nazir, the number of look at the kites, he means to be many Nazirios. And then Rabbi Yochanan would make sense. That Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi. But the Gemara says you mean to say that Rabbi also holds this difference between saying minyan or not. I'll show you that Rabbi holds, even if he said minyan also, he does mean a long one. But Tanya, Reini Nazir, minyan and Mosachama, which is the case the Mishnah also says. And it says, it's going to say, Rabbi argues, Reini Nazir, Keminyan and Mosachama, Mona Nazir is Keminyan and Mosachama. He has to count Naziros. He has to make many Nazirios of 30 days, the amount of days that there are in their solar year, 33 and 65 Naziros. Or if he said Kimei Alabana, Mona Kimei Alabana, lunar year or solar year, Rabbi Omer, even if you said, Rabbi Omer, Achi Omer Naziros Alai, Keminyan Mosacham, or Keminyan Mosalabana. He argues even in this case, even though you said minyan, it doesn't make that the word minyan changes everything. If he said Aveni Nazir Keminyan Mosacham is also, he's only going to be one Naziros for 365 days. Only if he says, I'm accepting upon myself Naziros, plural, the amount of days in the solar year, then it's going to be 365 Naziros. So you see that Rabbi doesn't hold this difference. And you're saying you want to say that's difference in Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi doesn't hold that. The one says, yeah, they can argue in that one particular point. The answer is Rabbi Yehuda, he agrees to Rabbi in one point, but he argues in this specific point. That he only meant to say one Nazirus. They could argue in this particular case, if you say the word minyan, doesn't make a difference. Both of them hold, if you didn't say the word minyan, you just mean to say one long one. If you said Hareni Nazir Saroshi, or Hareni Nazir, whatever the case would be, that you didn't say the word minyan, both of them would hold that you meant one long one. Tanakama holds that you mean many. Hareni Nazir Saroshi, Tanakama says you're many Naziros. Rabbi holds you only one Nazir, and Rabbi also told him, if you said Hareni Nazir minyan Saroshi, minyan Mosachama, so then Rabbi Yehuda would go on to the side of the Tanakama, that when you say the word minyan, you mean to say many Naziros, and Rabbi argues even in that case, that even if you said the word minyan, also you just mean one Naziros until you say Hareni Naziros. As the Rosh points out, according to this chart, there are going to be three shittas, the two extremes, and you can have Rabbi Yehuda in the middle. Tanakama is going to say, even if you didn't say the word minyan, also you mean many Naziros. Let's take the case of Hareni Nazir Saroshi, or the case of Hareni Nazir Mosachama. Tanakama will say that you're many Naziros. The other extreme is Rabbi would hold, even if you said the word minyan, it's one long Naziros. Hareni Nazir minyan Saroshi, Hareni Nazir minyan Mosachama. Rabbi holds doesn't make a difference. Still, it's only one long Nazir. And Rabbi Yehuda will say this difference. If you said the word minyan, then you mean Naziros. If you didn't say the word minyan, then you mean along Naziros. So the Gemara finished, and the Gemara answered Rabbi Yochanan, but the Gemara only answered Rabbi Yochanan from the second kasha. There were two kashas. The Gemara had two kashas on Rabbi Yochanan, that the Mishnah, when it says Rabbi Yehuda said a story, that he finished his Nazirus of the Mosachama and he died. The Gemara says it sounds more like he's agreeing to the Tanna Kama that there were 365 Naziros, not like Rebbe, not like Rebbe that holds that it would be one long Nazirus. But now I just hopped now that once the Gemara finished the Minyan Shani, it answers both kashas. Here he said Minyan Hilkiti. Here the Mishnah also happened to be the case Minyan and Mosachama. It says over there Minyan also, so it answers both kashas. Rabbi Yochanan can say that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rebbe that in the case of a box full of Nazirus, the question, he surely becomes a Nazir. The question is how long? Only one Nazirus. Is he going to be a Nazir for the days as many as the cucumbers can fit into the box, or the days as many as the mustard seeds could fit into the box? So over there, Rabbi holds, even though Rabbi usually holds something Nazirus Lakil, once he get in, he can't get out till he's sure, and therefore he's going to have to be a long Nazir. Only because he holds like Rebbe that, he only holds like Rebbe that it's going to be one long Nazirus. And even though we find two places that Rabbi Yehuda holds like the Rabbanan that he's many Naziros, that's only because he said the word minyan. Okay, that would also explain but we got a lot of information in the Mishnah what the focus is all about. But if you say many Naziros or one long Nazirus. The next case in the Mishnah, no, this is a brisa. We finished the Mishnah already. It means the more is not going to bring any more of the Mishnah, but it brings a brisa which we had already yesterday. Tana Rabbanan, Areini Nazir Koli Mechayai, or Areini Nazir Olam, Areini Nazir Olam. But if he said an amount, Afilu Me'eh Shana or Afilu Elef Shanim, Ein Zeh Nazir Olam Ela Nazir Le'olam. So yesterday we learned that this was the machlokis. If he's many Naziros, or is he one long Nazir? Yesterday's sugi comes into today's sugi very closely. I'm not sure to juggle everything now. We have machlokis in our Mishnah, Rebbe and the Tanna Kama. Here it says, if he says, yesterday the Kasha explained this brisa in two ways. What's the difference between the Reish and the Sefer? The Reish says case that he's in a zero olam, he's a Nazir forever, and which the Gemara says that it means he's going to be a 30-day Nazir again and again and again. I'm a Nazir all the days of my life, so then every month he becomes a new Nazir. I'm a Nazir Olam also. I'm a Nazir Olam also every day of his life. If he said a number, Me'eh Shana or Elef Shanim, then he's not a Nazir Olam and a Nazir Le'olam, which is one Nazir that never ends. What's the difference between the Reish and the Sefer? Yesterday the Gemara said two pshatim. Either it says because Davar Sheish Lo Kitzvah, Davar She'en Lo Kitzvah, is it something which is finite or not? Koli Mechayai or Nazir Olam seems like infinite. As far as he's concerned, it's infinite. It means forever. Even if he says his life is also not forever, but as far as he's concerned, it's forever. So then it means to say many Naziros every 30 days. But if he said a finite number, like 100, even though it's a big number, that's more than his life, 100 years, 1,000 years, still he meant one long one. That's Davar She'en Lo Kitzvah. The other teretz the Gemara said was if it's considered individual units, to say the days of my life and Nazir Olam, those are not units. Me'eh Shana, Elef Shanim are units, and therefore he meant so many it meant a long Naziros. Gemara Kasha, when he said going on the road till I get to Mokum, till the time takes to get to Mokum Ploni, the Gemara thought that also has units, and that the Gemara said there's no units over there because days are not considered units. Only if he said so. The days it takes. If he said the days it takes to travel, but he didn't say that. He just said from here to Mokum Ploni. So they don't talk about kilometers. They don't talk about pasos. They don't talk about days are not considered separate units. But all these different Gemaras l'chorah have to be reconciled if they're going like Rebbe, Rabbanan. I didn't get clarity about all these different shittas, how you put them all together. And also we have to remember that the case was before about a person who's a long Nazir without any stops. So they were still called, there's a din that he's allowed to be Mekel B'tar. But that's not because the Naziris is over. It's because then he's allowed to be Mekel B'tar, even though it's one long Naziris. The last, we're finishing the parak now. Areini Nazir Achas. I'm sorry. Areini Nazir Ve'achas. I'm a Nazir and one. What does that mean? That means two. Yesterday we talked about Hareini Nazir Achas or Hareini Nazir V'Yom Echad. Here it's not a Nazir V'Yom Echad. It's a Nazir and one. That means two. Monish time, because he's what is me to say, and another one. I'm a Nazir and one means a whole full Nazirus. What if he said Hareini Nazir V'Achas V'Od? So then is another one. So it's going to be Mona Sholosh. Not in this case of Od is not instead of saying V'Achas. He said Achas V'Od. So Hareini Nazir will be one. Hareini Nazir V'Achas is two. Hareini Nazir V'Achas V'Od is three. Achas means one. Od, that's the psak. There's the case and there's the psak. The halacha is if he said Hareini Nazir V'Achas, the halacha is that Mona Shtayim. Right. He's two Nazir. He has to keep two Naziros. If he said Hareini Nazir V'Achas V'Od, then he has to keep three Nazirus because the V'od made to add on another Nazirus. If he said Hareini Nazir V'Achas V'Od V'Shuv, V'Shuv means and again. I'm a Nazir and one and more and again. Mona Arba. Why Mona Arba?
There's Nazir V'Achas is two, V'Od is three, and then
And V'Shuv is four, and it means another one. That's interesting. I didn't learn like that, but it's good. The Mars the Kasha of Pshita, Ma'aratema V'Shuv Kikulu. Maybe when it says and again, he meant everything else that I did till now. Already he's done three, and now he says V'Shuv, so it means that once again another three. And then I have to give say Heavily Shish Kamash Malan Dolo Kamash Malan. That didn't mean that. It's just another way of saying more, and again another one, and therefore these Lashonas all mean another one. That's the end of that Gemara. Taner Rabbanan. Hareini Nazir Simcha Somer Hein. Achas, Digon, Shtayim, Trigon, Sholosh, Tetragon, Arba, Pentagon, Chamesh. This is Greek, or you can say in English also. Hein is one, duo, dugon. This is Greek words. It's I looked it up. That's the way you say it. How do you say it here? I wrote it down. You have a henagon. That's going to be coming up. The gon is coming over the next Gemara. Oh, this is here. It's going to be in the next Gemara. Okay, but the point is to say he has trigon, tetragon, pentagon. Pentagon. So this is Greek for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if he said it's like you say in English. If he said I'm a Nazir 1, or I'm a Nazir 2, or I'm a Nazir 3. So that's what the Gemara was saying. If it was big speak English, they spoke the Greek. So they said in that language that you could accept upon yourself the Naziris in different languages also. So if he said I'm a Nazir Hain, that's a Nazir 1, there's one. If he said a Nazir dugon, so then it's going to be 2. Trigon is 3, tetragon is 4, tetra we know is 4, like tetragramma, tetragon is 4, and pentagon, as we know, is 5. And now, once we just mentioned these Greek words, these shapes, so numbers, so the Gemara means something about Negoim, which is no relevance to us. That's going to be the issue about the numbers of walls. So a house could have a nega, like it says in Parshas Mitzorah, that the house, that there could be a nega on a house, and the house becomes tamei, and sometimes you have to take out the stone, sometimes you have to break down the whole house. So it's going to say it's only if it's a 4-walled house. It has to be a shape of a square. Tanu Rabbana, Vais, Ogol, Digon, Trigon, Pentagon, any matama benigon, Tetragon matama benigon. If it's a round house or it's a 2, I don't know how you have a 2-sided house. How do you have a 2-walled house? Only 2 walls. How do you have that? Or 3, then a trigon is going to be a triangle. That's good. Pentagon is going to be 5.
We're talking about walls, we're not talking about it.
But maybe the point might be, I don't know. I didn't get it. How do you have a 2-walled house? Unless it means that it doesn't have all the walls, or some of the walls are rounded.
You have 2 walls that are like this.
We're talking about the walls, not the.
Yeah, just 2 walls.
It's
And then you walk in on 2. You can't close it.
Like a Ramavina.
2 walls, and then
Okay.
if you want to.
I don't know. But that's the point of the Brisa to say that it's only Matami Benigam if it has 4 walls. If it's round or 2 or 3 or 4, ain't no time Benigam. Only Tetragon is time Benigam. Only has 4 walls. My timer, Lamatu Omer Kir Kiros, Lamalu Omer Kir Kiros, or Ekanarba. But a Parsha of Benigam, it says the word Kiros twice, and it could have said the word Kir. Kiros is plural, so it says 2 times the word Kiros, which means walls. And plural, 2 times plural is going to be 4. And that's where you learn out that in order to be Matami Benigam, it has to have 4 walls. I just wrote that, I was looking up, hemagon is 1, digon is 2, trigon, tetragon, pentagon, hexagon, heptagon or septagon is 7, and then octagon is 8. What is that? A neagon is 9, and decagon is 10. So this, the Gemara is just quoting the Greek words. Yeshikoach and Hadron Kinuye. And we'll be continuing soon with, what are we continuing soon? With today's Pirkei Avos. Yeshikoach, everybody, thank you.
That's right. Yeah, makes sense.